Something that I talk a lot about with my clients is team retention. I found over my years of consulting in operations and building world-class teams that this is often the most overlooked part of having a successful business. We talk a lot about culture and hiring, but I don't think we give enough emphasis to retention and what it actually takes to not only attract top talent, but retain it, which is why I'm so jazzed for you to listen in to today's episode, so I can clue you in on what I have found to be the magic recipe for retention. Welcome to the Biz Doctor Podcast, my love letter to business owners the world over. I'm your host, Lauren Goldstein, award-winning business consultant and advisor fondly nicknamed the Biz Doctor by my clients. I help business owners who are burning the candle at both ends diagnose what is actually keeping them buried in the day-to-day busy work, and then formulate a treatment plan to adjust their business and team to fit them, so they can take a breath and a vacation and have more fun making a bigger impact than ever. So grab your favorite beverage and your earbuds and let's dive into our latest episode. Today, I'm going to give you something to truly unlock your team in ways you might not have imagined. As we dive in, I want to set the stage and share some stats around retention that I think will surprise you, and also help us see why this is something that quite literally can make all the difference in your business and team. Did you know that it takes about $5,000 right out of the gate and an average of 100 hours to hire someone? Let that sink in. Not just the investment, but the time. 100 hours. That's your time, your team's time. That's planning the role, sorting through applications, doing interviews, onboarding. It's a lot. And to add salt to the wound, did you know that replacing an employee could cost up to 200% of their salary? According to Gallup, the stats for replacement costs are as follows: 200% of a leader or manager's salary, 80% for technical roles, and 40% for frontline workers. When you think about it in the context I just shared, you can begin to see not only from a human standpoint, but from a cost standpoint, how much prioritizing this will have a positive impact throughout your business and your team. Another startling figure is 51% of US employees are watching opportunities or actively seeking new jobs. Holy smokes. According to Gallup, more than half of employees are considering leaving their jobs. This means self-reported employee turnover risk is the highest it's been since 2015. And here are the top 4 reasons they leave: advancement, development, and career opportunities. 2, they no longer find their work interesting. 3rd, workplace culture. And 4th, unrealistic job expectations, which is one I'm going to touch on a bit more later in this episode, so stick around. Now the good news. So I've told you all the crazy stats, but here's a really good stat. 42% of employee turnover is preventable. Again, Gallup shows that 42% of employees who voluntarily left their organization in the past year reported that their manager or organization could have done something to prevent them from leaving their job. Furthermore, 45% of those voluntary leavers report that neither a manager or company leadership discussed their job satisfaction, performance, or future at the organization with them in the 3 months prior to leaving. Y'all, what? This is insane. And I know you guys roll your eyes when I say things like you need to have these discussions with your team monthly, at the very least quarterly, but trust me. Let that statistic sink in, because this makes all the difference. Being in communication and understanding your team and having those check-ins, huge, absolutely huge. Now, 59% said that greater work-life balance and personal well-being are very important attributes for their next job. And this isn't a surprise, but here's what's even more tangibly important. They are hungry for meaningful engagement, recognition, and growth. Don't get me wrong, I believe balance and prioritizing mental health are critical. Heck, it's why one of my most requested keynotes is having mentally happier, healthier, and more resilient teams. But those aren't really in your control. But meaningful engagement, recognition, growth, and checking in, that is in your control as a business leader, which I think is a great thing. And when you realize that, it makes all the difference. Speaking of control, here's the things that you can control to really help your retention. This is the recipe. You ready? It's an acronym that I created called CARGO. Culture, appreciation, recognition, growth, and onboarding. Now, why I love this is because, let's be honest, cargo is part of a journey, and our people are the cargo of our business that are worth protecting. If you want to get even more corny, cargo is the emotional and cultural freight of a thriving business. So again, cargo, culture, appreciation, recognition, growth, and onboarding, with the two most important ones as bookends being culture and onboarding. Let's go through each of these, and you will see how understanding how all of these play together is going to improve your retention exponentially. So first, culture. I know it's a buzzword. I know sometimes it can be overwhelming and confusing. Here's my definition of what culture is. It's the common language that allows for the individuals in an organization to be sure they're all talking about the same thing, and what they're talking about has meaning. It also establishes a common framework for decision-making that allows trust and autonomy to blossom in the team without the worry that they will go against what's best for the business. That clarity breeds success and accountability. So if you don't know what your vision is, you don't know what your culture is, this is going to be really tough for you to retain top talent. Second, appreciation. Everyone feels appreciation differently, but one thing is certain. Every human on this planet wants to feel like they are being appreciated for the work that they do. This is actually one of the most effective antidotes to resentment in your team. A hot tip here, though. This is also true in personal relationships. So look at your team, look at your relationships. Are you adequately expressing your appreciation and letting the people on your team and in your life know that you appreciate their contribution? It's a very valid question you should be asking a lot. Next, recognition. Just like with appreciation, everyone likes to be recognized, and everyone receives recognition differently. Some want visible recognition in the forms of awards and accolades, some monetary, some like quiet recognition, and they don't want to be in the spotlight. This is really important for you to know about every member of your team. In fact, when I'm interviewing someone, this is one of the very first questions I ask them, so I know their view of the world and how to best support them. Now, I also want to take a minute and talk about something that I see can actually demotivate a team, even though it's well-intentioned. So most organizations have a habit of only celebrating the high performers or people who are at the tippy top. Now, I'm not saying to stop that, but I am encouraging you to look deeper into the middle of the people who are meeting expectations and showing progress and growth that need to be recognized. Now, I am not one for participation trophies or rewarding mediocrity. This is not what this is. What this is taking the time to reach down to a few people who you see doing the work and stretching, even though they might not be in that top 1%. It's an easy way to make them see that you see them and value them and that you're willing to invest in them. You would be so surprised how something that seems so simple can really change the trajectory of a team member and have them blossom in ways that not only support their growth, but the growth of the business. Now, speaking of growth, this one is sometimes the hardest to nail down, but if you know your team, you will know how to support their growth in a way that makes them double down on loyalty and success. Now, sometimes growth to them is a title advancement, sometimes it's more responsibility or it's pay, and sometimes it's just learning a new skill or contributing in a slightly different way. But it all starts with you getting to know your team and their vision for their life. Are you sensing a trend about getting to know your team? So why this is important is because when you understand where they want to go and show them how the business is helping them achieve their goals, not just you getting your business goals checked off, then it truly becomes a win-win, and they can directly see their impact not only on the business and your customers, but how you as a leader and employer are helping their goals become a reality. Onboarding. All right, now this is the big one. I see a lot of business owners spend all this time and money to get someone to the end zone and then fumble the ball on the 1-yard line because they've cobbled together an onboarding experience that isn't ideal. Some stats to illustrate why you really need to double down on this are as follows. 20% of employees quit within the first 45 days of employment. 60% of employers do not set any milestones or goals for new employees. Businesses with a smooth onboarding process boost their employee retention rates by 52%. A good onboarding experience results in 18 times more dedication to the employer. An effective onboarding journey results in a revenue bump of 2.5 times. And here's the last one. 69% of employees who have had an exceptional onboarding experience are likely to stick around for at least 3 years. Just take that in, guys. How would your business change if every single person that you've hired stuck around for at least 3 years? Like, can you just imagine how much synergy and success and growth and momentum that would create to have that kind of stable workforce? That's what's possible. So now I'm sure you're asking yourself, Lauren, that sounds great, but how do I level up my onboarding experience? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here are 4 ways to make your onboarding experience better and help your employees stick. First, make a 90-day onboarding plan with key milestones of what they should know or be owning on their own so you can see if they're on track. I know that this sounds so simple. You're like, really, that's your first thing? But so many businesses don't actually have a listed out, clearly articulated plan for the first 90 days. They're like, well, I think you should learn this and we'll do this. And like, here are the things you do day to day, but they haven't actually thought about how all those puzzle pieces go together. So that's the first and foremost thing. Make a plan. And remember that your real work starts after they sign their offer letter. Have someone who is not their boss, and honestly, probably not HR because everybody's afraid of HR, check in with them every 30 days and be a resource for them. So, for example, when I hire someone for one of my clients, or I'm sitting in my fractional COO seat, we have 6 months of support post-hire for several reasons. So first, with my clients that I hire for, I'm not only supporting that new employee and making sure that any bumps in their integration are smoothed out, but I'm a resource for them, and I'm there guiding the business owner and leader on how to lead and train this new person. Because something that I hear constantly from my business owners is, I want to hire someone and I know this is going to take so much of my time. And that time scarcity sometimes results in not actually effectively leading or training them. And so when you have someone like me, and even when I'm in my COO seat and I'm checking in and I'm asking questions about like what's working, what's not, what have you accomplished, where do you feel stuck or frustrated? And then I even go insofar as to say, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how fulfilled are you feeling? How acknowledged, like how recognized, how happy? Like, it's really a pulse check every 30 days. Like, that's what I do. Every 30 days for 6 months, I'm having the same conversation because I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for how we can better support them. I'm also looking for clues if they're not going to stick around. And this is really, I think, critical. And also why, knock on wood, but all the people that I've hired have stuck around for, like, one of my clients' team members just celebrated her 2-year anniversary. I was shocked. I was like, no way. I hired you 6 months ago. She's been there for 2 years and she's doing incredible. And it's because when you put this proactive thoughtfulness into your onboarding, it just makes such a big difference. And it's so different than what I see most business owners do, which is the sink or swim approach. Where I'm going to throw them in the deep end with everything all at once and see if they can swim. That way we can separate the people who are going to make it from the people who aren't. In my professional opinion, you might as well just light your money on fire because this rarely works and it causes so much stress and chaos in the business and the team. I just want to bop people on the head and be like, please stop doing this. It doesn't work. It doesn't support anybody really. And you might think that it's saving you time, but it's really not. So instead, plan it out, put yourself in their shoes, think through the aspects they need to know to not only be comfortable with how everything works, but empowered in their new role and fully integrated in the team. Now, in addition to a clear onboarding experience, I suggest pairing the new employee with a seasoned mentor or member of the team. Not only does this help them get up to speed faster, but it mitigates one of the other reasons people tend to leave, which is feeling alone or isolated and disconnected from the team, which is especially prevalent in today's remote working world. Like, just think about it. If you have a remote or hybrid workforce and they're working in a silo and interacting with their team members over email or Slack and Zoom, but not really getting any of that connection outside of like, hey, did you see my email? Or hey, we need this asset. You're missing out on another one of my 7 C's, which is connection. And the more connected people are to your team, your vision, how their role fits in, the more they're going to stay. The third thing is you need more check-ins than you think. Now, stick with me. I know you're like, oh my God, Lauren, you're giving me more work. I'm already busy as it is. I hear you. And so often we think that our new people will reach out and ask questions, because I know I've said it, other people say it. I'm here as a resource. Let me know if you need anything. Let me know if you have questions. But the reality is that oftentimes that's very intimidating to new hires who fear that if they ask too many questions, you'll think that they're bad at their job, regret hiring them, or that they'll look stupid. All very valid. When somebody is coming to me and asking so many questions, my first inclination might be to be frustrated, but then I have to stop and say, where have I failed them that they have this many questions that are unanswered? Like, obviously there's a gap in our training somewhere. Or what's even better sometimes is they're asking this many questions because they've uncovered something that we haven't actually gone through before. And so then it's actually a moment to improve processes, which I appreciate. But if you don't have these regular check-ins, you don't give them the freedom and safe space, sorry if that triggers you, safe space to come and ask those questions. So by having these regular check-ins, and honestly, in those first 2 weeks, I recommend having a mini check-in every day. You're going to give them that sigh of relief they really need to help you help them get up to speed and be successful in their job. Now, while I'm on this topic, if you are not doing monthly reviews with your team, you are missing the mark and potentially shooting yourself in the foot by not being able to recognize patterns that will tell you if someone is at risk of leaving or not. And the reason I say this is I think anyone that's left a business, if you really think about their behavior before they left, there were signs. I'll give you a perfect example of one of my staff in Colorado. I obviously take all of these to heart and knew her very well and knew what standard behavior was and what a deviation was. And one of the things that I always love doing when I go back to our office in Colorado is I take everyone out to lunch. And I said, hey, I'll be back on this day. I'd love to grab lunch. And normally she's like, yeah, that'd be great. We can go here. And she said no. And I said, that's interesting. And then there were a couple of other things. And this happened to be for our family business. So I'm not as involved in this business anymore. But I basically emailed my dad and I said, hey, I don't know what's going on with so-and-so, but I have a feeling that she'll be leaving in the next 60 days or sooner. So you might want to check in with her. And sure enough, about 30 days later, she said, hey, I'm going to go do, and it was something completely unrelated. So it wasn't like she left us for a different company doing the same thing. It was, she wanted to go pursue her passion with botanicals and plants. And I love it. Like she's basically working at I don't know, whatever those places are called, not a nursery, but a botanical garden. And she just wanted to do something totally different. But I knew, and we could prepare because I knew my employee well enough to know that something was off. And, we had a lovely chat about it. And I actually told her, I said, I knew this was coming. And she's like, I knew you knew because of XYZ. And we laughed about it. But the point of this is I know that sometimes we have that line of demarcation of this is personal versus professional. And we're a little hesitant to get to know our team really well because we don't want to cross the line and, in the HR world and ask too many personal questions. But what I've found is when you get to know your team, you get to know how to support them better. And you also get to see very clear signs of when something's working or something's not. And part of the recipe for retention is really just being aware enough of your team and having your pulse on the team to know when something's amiss. So if you want a super simple monthly review template, you can find that in, no surprise here, our Golden Key Scorecard. So make sure after this episode that you go snag that free resource at goldenkeypartnership.com/go. And I know I said this before, but trust me, when you check in every month, you will very easily be able to not only support your team better, but see those warning signs that something might not be quite right and nip it in the bud before you get that surprise resignation letter. Lastly, I want you to use the first 3 of my 7 C's to a high-performing team as your North Stars in those first 90 days. The first C is always clarity. Have you been absolutely clear about the role, the expectations, the metrics for success, the vision, the plan? Again, all parts of our Golden Key Scorecard that make role clarity a breeze. Because as I have said hundreds of times on this show, unshared expectations are nothing more than premeditated resentments. So make sure that everyone is clear because clarity is king. Capacity. Circling back to one of the reasons they leave being unrealistic job expectations. Capacity is all about understanding the scope of their role and if they're doing things in that they are not truly skilled at or good at. So things that aren't necessarily in the same lane or energy. So what I mean is a lot of times people think that people burn out because they're just doing too much. But in my experience, our plates can expand almost exponentially when we're doing similar things and similar things that we're really good at that are our specialty. Where capacity and burnout come into play is when there's too much context switching and adding things to their plate that are not in their true skill set repeatedly. So what I mean is there's moments in every business where it's all hands on deck and, you might be in marketing, but you're helping out with sales for a hot second, but then you go back to your job. That's not necessarily going to create burnout. What's going to create burnout is when you lose somebody in a department and then suddenly someone is covering 2 departments and doing stuff that's outside of their wheelhouse in multiple different arenas for an extended amount of time. And speaking of capability, this is about making sure that you have the right butts in the right seats and that they are truly capable of what you've asked. Sometimes we have people who are struggling not because they aren't a great fit for the company, but because they're not in the right seat. So when you have those check-ins, again, I'm going to tell you to have more check-ins than you want, be looking for this. You don't want to lose someone valuable because they're in the wrong seat. So again, the 3 C's are clarity, capacity, and capability. This was a very meaty episode, and I recognize that. So to recap and put it in a little bow, the recipe for improving your retention is cargo: culture, appreciation, recognition, growth, and onboarding. Now, it might seem like a lot, and I won't sugarcoat it. It will take thoughtful effort and proactivity, but once you build this muscle, your team, your business, and your future self will thank you because it makes building and retaining a team so much easier. I know I packed a lot in this episode, so thank you so much for listening in and sticking with me to the end. Be sure to bookmark this episode and re-listen because I know I shared some huge golden nuggets. And of course, if anything I shared sparked something in you or resonated, I'd love to hear about it and for you to share this episode with your fellow business owners. Find me on the interwebs and let's connect. Tag or DM me on Instagram at It's Lauren Goldstein or LinkedIn or wherever you hang out online. Please also take a moment to rate and review our show so it shows up for more people who need to hear it. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe so you're the first to get notified when our next episode is live and ready for your ears. Thanks so much for listening. That's it for this week's episode. Until next time. Thank you for listening to the Biz Doctor podcast. Now, I like to say that friends don't let friends WebMD your business. So if you're wondering what your next steps could be, here are some options for you. No matter what, head to the show notes or to my website, goldenkeypartnership.com, for some impactful resources to support you getting out from under your business. That's also where you'll find the links to learn more about our services and how we support business owners, just like you, who are ready to make the successful jump from business operator in the trenches to visionary business owner with more freedom and flexibility. All of that info is on our website, so pop on over to learn more or get in touch. goldenkeypartnership.com. Finally, if you love the Biz Doctor podcast, I'd be so grateful if you would share it with your friends and network and give us a 5-star rating or review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
An original
from Story Studio Network.